Anime was saved once again with this phenomenal episode of Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. My mind right now is just trying to fully grasp what I just watched. The sheer quality of this episode. I had to sit down and watch it a couple more times, like 2 more times, just because of how good this episode was. It truly was an episode worth the hype. It was an episode that I can see why many fans of the original source was building up, because seeing the content that was within this episode blew my mind. It's not just the action in this episode with the beautiful animation that really won me over. In fact, one of my favorite moments of this episode is seeing Mob come to the realization of how people can change. It was a really big moment for his character, and he came very aware of how much he has changed since the beginning of the series, since the first episode of Mob Psycho Season 1 came out, and we began his story. He finally realized how much he has been changing with the people interacting with him, everybody he's came in contact with. He has been changing. His soul has changed progressively as the series went on, and it's nice to see in this episode that it's kind of like a ribbon on top for Mob's character, and a new path for his character and what direction he will take going forward in this series. So, let's get into it. When it came to this episode, Mob had a moral dilemma he was faced with. He was faced with a dilemma to where he was a boy that had no powers. Mogami forced him in this spiritual world to where Mob had no psychic abilities, and he was repressed, constantly pushed down by everyone in society. It's a really realistic depiction of what happens to people in real life. If you are someone that stands out or someone that doesn't stand out, sometimes you get bullied, picked on, because others are using you as a crutch to further themselves in society, pushing you down to make themselves feel better. And so in this case, when this episode came out showcasing Mob and how this girl was constantly bullying him in class, or how everybody wasn't standing up or helping him, or how his brother didn't help him, this was a possible future of what would have happened if Mob was not gifted with psychic powers. And this is the big thing that was revealed in this episode, is that Mob, since the very beginning, he may be a god when it comes to his psychic abilities, but he's always been an individual that didn't really care too much about them. He didn't think they were really cool. He didn't think that they were an amazing end-all to be-all or whatever. He always just wanted to be normal. He always wanted to be an individual that could work on his social skills, be normal, fit in with people, and interact with, a group, and have friends. That's what Mob has always wanted. And so he always was kind of like, it would be better if I really didn't have psychic powers. That's kind of what he always was thinking about throughout the series. It was like subconsciously in his mind, in the back of his head, he was thinking about. And so Mogami gave Mob what he wanted. Gave him exactly kind of what Mob has been going for since the very beginning of the series. A what if. If, Mob didn't have psychic abilities, would his life be a lot better? Since he would have a lot more time to focus on social skills instead of being gifted with, psychic powers. And so, with him being gifted this opportunity, he realized how much of a fool he was, of how he was taking for granted his powers of what he had, and not realizing the potential he has for this world. See, here's the thing. Mob realized something, and Mogami made him realize that normal circumstances of an individual, normally in life, you're not usually able to really focus on your social skills if you're already at rock bottom. Like, normally you're just constantly pushed down, and you can't really get back up after it. And that was kind of the point that was being made here, and what Mogami was saying was that, Mob, you're very naive. You having psychic powers, having the power to defend yourself, and then being able to work on your social skills, that's not a normal gift people usually have in their life. They don't normally get that to happen. And so you being able to work on your social skills while having this immense power, it's not natural, it's not normal, and you should count yourself lucky. And Mob realized in that moment that if he had no psychic powers, he would not be given the opportunity to be able to have the friends he had, or has right now, and be able to communicate with them and change as a person. So Mob came to a full realization that he needs both sides. He needs, his social skills and normal side, but also his psychic side. He cares for them both, and he cannot do without them. He needs both of them to be able to function as a person. And like I said at the, beginning of this episode review, he realized how gifted he was. He was someone that had a lot, and he was taking it for granted, and now he doesn't want to do that anymore. And so that is why he's going to go with his life in stride in trying to help out people and truly try to save them and make them change. Even evil spirits, he wants to help them change to where they could potentially be better people. And in some cases, that's kind of what he did to Mogami in this episode. I mean, Mogami was not exorcised. He was still technically alive as a spirit at the end of this episode. He was captured by a previous Claw member, but Mogami didn't die, and he did talk to Mob in a way. He's like, I want to watch over you to see where you go, basically implying that he wants to see where Mob's answer leads him, where it leads Mob in his life, and will he make the same choices that Mogami did, and will he eventually become an evil spirit, or will he find a new pathway that Mogami never even took a moment to realize? So Mob did, in a way, change Mogami at the end, which is kind of what the entire characterization and development was for in this episode, that Mob wants to start tackling both sides differently. He wants to change people instead of just getting rid of them. So let's talk about the fighting, or, I guess in general, let's just talk about the animation. When it comes to the animation of this episode, there is something that needs to be pointed out. The person that worked on the animation, I think it's the director or just the main animator of this episode, apparently they're very well known for iconic scenes like in My Hero Academia, this series, Mob Psycho, just, stuff that Studio Bones does. This, director slash animator is very well known or well versed in some really high quality scenes in certain series. Apparently the animator slash director worked on Fate Apocrypha episode 22. I actually personally have not seen that episode, so I can't say how good that episode was, but apparently it's a really good hallmarker for his career. So, I mean, when I really take a moment to think about this, it's kind of sad that I was told that this, animator that did this episode, made this episode so beautiful, is actually going to be going away for a while. Apparently they're going to be getting enlisted in the military in Taiwan or something, because it's mandatory, and they're not going to actually be able to do any more animation like segments like this in this episode of Mob Psycho for a good while, because, military service is, probably a couple of years, I would say, like maybe 2 to 5 years, I don't really know, but so this is probably the last time we're going to see this director slash animator for a good while, which is pretty sad, honestly. I'm really sad to hear that. Now, anyways, let's talk about Mob's change, or how he looked in this episode when he reached his mystery power, when his power reached 100% and his emotions just reached max. See, Mob, normally when he goes into 100% mode, he goes on a rampage. Like, you see to where his eyes get clouded or whatever. He goes on a rampage. He's not really conscious of anything he's doing. He's kind of usually controlled by rage. That's usually what happens in those moments. But it was a very distinct difference when you see Mob in this episode. He was very calm. You saw his eyes shine with color. He was someone that knew what he needed to do, and he wasn't being consumed by anger slash rage. He just wanted to be able to save the girl in this, spiritual world that's currently being possessed by Mogami. And it showed that Mob is slowly starting to get a grasp on his psychic powers. He's now slowly being able to handle 100% and be able to control his emotions in a way to be able to help out others. Which, by the way, I like the description on what happened to Mob. Basically, when the greatest fear, like when your fear reaches a boiling point, like where you're so consumed by fear, that's when courage can really shine. And that was a really good moment. You can call it cliche slash cheesy all you want, but it was a really good moment just showing that this can happen in real life. When someone is backed into a corner and they don't really have much they can do, and they're all hope is lost or whatever, usually it's the people that don't give up and they continue to stand back up to fight for what they believe in that really shine in the darkness. And that's kind of what Mob was like. He was this shining gem that, was slowly starting to fade, but he lit back up because he knew if he fell, everything that's been done in his life, everything that's, people have helped him with, would be all for nothing if he fell in that moment. So he got the courage, he got the hope to stand up to Mogami and all the evil spirits and bring them down. Love that moment. Easily one of my favorite moments of the episode. So let's talk about the situation with the girl. and how she was very self-aware now of what she was doing to Mob. This was a really good prime example of how Mob wants to change people. That was the thing about what this episode was showing. And Mob also changed the girl that was possessed. She was, in a lot of ways, a bad person, and it makes now a lot of sense why Mogami possessed her, because finding out his backstory and how he wanted to take his anger out on bad people, it makes sense why he would possess the girl. The girl was a horrible individual, and the girl we saw in the spiritual world that was bullying Mob was actually her real personality. It was not a fake personality that Mogami threw in there. It truly was the proper representation of what the girl was like. And so when Mob finally freed her, even after everything she did to him, when Mob actually decided to free her, and she was released from the prison inside of her own mind, Mob asked her a question. You know, like, is that really you? Did you really mean those things? Did you do those things? And you see how she said sorry. And at first glance, when she says sorry, it doesn't seem like she truly means it. But then when you see her turn around, it's like, I'm sorry, and she starts crying, you're like, holy crap, she does realize what she was doing. And in that moment, she realizes that she was really being a horrible person to Mob, and he did not deserve that. And of all people to really save her was an individual that she was criticizing, putting down, thinking that he was absolute garbage, that can't do anything. A boy that was basically nothing to her stood up and protected and saved her. It's a really good moment for the series, Mob as a character, and for her to develop and learn her lesson to change as an individual. And that's kind of the answer now we got to how Mob is going to handle these type of situations. Remember a couple episodes back, Mob, he had a dilemma to where if he was getting rid of bad spirits, completely, like, eradicating them, then should he do the same for humans? And now he got his answer. He doesn't need to actually do that. He just needs to change them in a way to where they're no longer evil. It's easier said than done, obviously, but it's still a good little note for Mob to try his own efforts, his own answer to how to handle this situation he's been given. So yeah, I think overall this is a really good episode. Easily the best episode of Mob Psycho 100 in entirety. I'm not talking about just Season 2, but Season 1 as well. This is a fantastic episode, and anyone that honestly disagrees, I don't know what to say. It's not just the story department that was so good, but the art and animation was on a whole other level compared to anything I've seen, honestly, from this year of anime. Yes, I know this year just began, but it's still just an impressive feat just seeing the quality of the animation, and I don't think many anime from this year is going to be able to beat the quality I witnessed in this episode of Mob Psycho. It's going to be pretty freaking hard. It's not an easy accomplishment. But okay, that's pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.